Hi, my name is Carly Leatherman. I am currently an occupational therapy student here at the University of Alabama at Birmingham. And in this module, I'll be discussing the importance of attachment and its influence on child behavior, particularly in the context of food and mealtimes. So why is attachment important to talk about? When a child enters your home, whether through adoption or foster care, they bring with them their past, which almost always includes loss, grief, and complicated family dynamics. Entering foster care may also mean a child is now in a family with different cultural and racial identities, which can add another layer of uncertainty and inhibit belonging. All of these experiences can cause trauma. The CDC defines trauma as any act of commission or omission by a parent, caregiver, or another person in custodial care that results in harm, potential for harm, or threat of harm to a child. Additionally, complex trauma is defined as prolonged exposure to psychologically distressing events that involve intense fear, terror, and hopelessness, such as physical abuse, sexual abuse, neglect, poverty, even adoptions, natural disasters, and war. It is important to recognize that a particular event may be experienced as traumatic for one individual and not for another. For example, a child removed from an abusive home may experience it differently than their sibling does. So why is attachment important to talk about? When a baby comes into the world, they need to feel safe and know that their caregivers will meet their needs. When a baby has a need, they cry, and if their needs are met by a warm and nurturing caregiver, trust develops. However, when a baby cries and their needs are not met or are met inconsistently, the infant will develop mistrust and may learn not to cry because they know their caregiver won't meet their needs, or they may cry excessively to maintain that caregiver attention. Attachment styles in children with histories of trauma play a crucial role in understanding their emotional and social development. These children may exhibit a wide spectrum of attachment styles that are influenced by their past experiences. For some, trauma can lead to insecure attachment patterns characterized by anxiety or avoidance, while others may still manage to develop secure attachments despite their traumatic histories. The role of attachment in this context extends beyond just emotional connections. It affects their ability to form relationships, regulate emotions, and even engage in daily activities. By the end of the module, I hope you have a better understanding of the impact attachment history has on behavior, co-regulation and mealtime strategies, and fostering trust and felt safety for you and your child. So, types of attachment. The first one we'll talk about is a healthy, secure attachment. A secure attachment develops from a history of caregivers responding affectionately and consistently to an infant's needs. A healthy, secure attachment helps build a child's ability to self-regulate or being able to calm self when they are dysregulated or out of control, throwing giant tantrums, or having a meltdown, things like that. Children will learn to regulate from their environments and their caregivers through co-regulation. We'll talk more about co-regulation in a few slides. Insecure attachments develop from different patterns of caregivers not responding warmly or consistently to a child's needs. There are three types of insecure attachment styles: avoidant, ambivalent, and disorganized. With an avoidant attachment, the caregivers are unable to fill the infant's emotional needs while they consistently provide essential care such as food and clothing. They fall short in providing nurturing care, including comfort or affectionate touch. Infants with this attachment either learn to not cry to get needs met, and then may learn to self-soothe or turn to objects or toys for comfort. With anxious ambivalent, caregivers provide emotional support to infants in an inconsistent manner, creating an unpredictable emotional environment for the child. This inconsistency is reflected in caregivers responding with comfort and affection at times, while at other times they may scold the infant for being fussy. Infants with this attachment are often difficult to soothe in order to maintain that caregiver attention, and this can lead to anxiety and uncertainty in social situations later in life. With a disorganized attachment, the caregivers exhibit frightening behavior or display fear themselves when interacting with their infant. Infants with this attachment do not have predictable strategies to cope or get their needs met. This attachment is common in children who come from places of trauma and or abuse and neglect, such as children in foster care. In adolescence, this can impact them having a healthy relationship with caregivers or others. It's important to notice that without conscious awareness, attachment styles at 12 months of age can carry on throughout the child's life. When individuals experience chronic or prolonged trauma, the survival parts of their brain are more efficient and faster. So in this picture here, this is called the hand model of the brain, which was developed by Dr. Dan Siegel. I linked his video below. I'll briefly go over it now, but I recommend watching it as he does a great job explaining the functions and parts of the brain and how it relates to attachment and dysregulation. At the end of the PowerPoint, I've also provided a great video explaining this hand-brain model to children. In this model, our prefrontal cortex and cortex are represented by the 4 fingers wrapped around the thumb. These areas of the brain allow us to think, reason, and perceive the outside world while also regulating the limbic system. The limbic region and the brainstem, represented by the thumb and the base of the hand, work together and allow us to have a flight, fright, or freeze response. When activated, the prefrontal cortex disengages to allow our limbic region to take over, hence the imagery of the flipped lid as unwrapping the fingers from the thumb. This is a survival mechanism that can happen for both real and perceived threats. When this happens, we are in survival mode and have less access to rational thinking. This is why strategies to calm the nervous system should not involve reasoning or negotiating. However, allowing your child to recognize and address the emotions related to the situation can help begin to regulate their brain. And it can be as straightforward as saying, I am feeling anxious, or I am feeling afraid. The brain doesn't differentiate between what's good and bad, but learns whatever is repeated. The more exposure one has to a behavior or experience or habit, the more opportunity the brain has to reorganize accordingly to that behavior. So those with a history of complex trauma may have maladaptive patterns more deeply embedded and may take more time to develop or replace those with new skills and behaviors. Trauma can affect multiple different brain functions. An affected amygdala can lead to increased anxiety and fearfulness in a traumatized child. The affected prefrontal cortex can result in difficulty focusing, poor memory, and difficulty with critical thinking. An affected hippocampus can lead to impairment of memory and emotional instability. In addition, all of the sensory awareness is impacted, such as in an activated state or a state of fear, all of our senses become heightened. These profound physiological changes can have an impact on psychological and emotional states. Children who have experienced trauma may have persistent, unpleasant emotional states, sleep issues, hypervigilance, attention issues, a loss of interest in activities, and maybe feelings of detachment. In optimal development, the caregiver initially acts as a regulation for a child, which then leads to the child learning to self-regulate. Children with histories of trauma often do not have the advantage of learning self-regulation through scaffolding or learning by observation or modeling appropriate behavior from a caregiver. The child then learns other ways to get their needs met, such as through behavioral outbursts, violence, and/or aggression as a result of their histories. The absence of co-regulation in children with histories of trauma can intensify their emotional and behavioral challenges. Children who have experienced trauma often struggle with self-regulation due to the disruption of their nervous system's response to stress. Without the presence of a supportive co-regulator, these children may find it difficult to manage their intense emotions and reactions. This lack of co-regulation can lead to heightened anxiety, impulsivity, lack of concentration, and difficulty forming healthy attachments with peers, caregivers, and teachers. Caregivers play a crucial role in filling this gap by providing a stable and nurturing environment where co-regulation can take place. Through therapeutic interventions and consistent support, these children can gradually develop the self-regulation skills needed to cope with their traumatic experiences and kind of move towards healing and resilience. A caregiver's own attachment history plays a role into the type of care they provide for a child. For example, a caregiver who grew up in a secure in their attachment is more likely to give care that is warm and responsive and consistent versus someone who grew up insecure in their attachment that may not have the same capacity for consistent positive responsiveness. Being aware of your own attachment history can help you be more conscious of your own parenting style. I have linked an attachment survey for you here if you want to learn a little bit about your own attachment style. Now let's talk strategies for co-regulation and reestablishing habits and routines. First, provide a warm, responsive relationship by communicating with words and actions and by showing interest in the child, recognizing and responding to their needs and wants, and providing patient and nurturing care in times of stress and fear. Second, structure the environment. Create an environment that is physically and emotionally safe. Make consistent and predictable routines with extra care around transitions, as transitions are a common trigger for anxiety and stress. Frequent moves and changes in routines can be disruptive and unsettling, making it challenging for a child to adapt to new situations. If you're going to have a change in your routine, make sure you communicate that ahead of time so that your child can kind of prepare and expect it. And then initially keep their world small by limiting excessive extracurricular activities like sports and clubs and social groups, which can be challenging for those with a difficulty with transitioning. Children often look to adults, particularly their caregivers, as models for emotional and behavioral regulation. When adults demonstrate effective self-regulation, such as managing stress, handling conflicts calmly, and expressing emotions appropriately, children learn by example. I know it's not easy, but in a stressful situation, first regulate your own emotions by staying calm and composed. Walk into another room if you have to. Maintaining a soothing tone of voice and reassuring body language can kind of help convey a sense of safety to the child. Secondly, active listening and validating the child's feelings are essential. Acknowledging their emotion and empathizing with their perspective can help provide them some comfort. Another strategy is to get soft, such as whispering instead of matching your child's volume. This may help engage your child as they will try to lean in to listen. By being present, reflecting calmness, sitting quietly, and or taking deep breaths, the child will eventually begin to mirror you. It may not and likely won't be immediate, but over time. Most importantly, be intentional. Children with traumatic backgrounds require intentional and consistent parenting. Create a plan for times of stress that everyone in the household is on board with. Lastly, take advantage of respite care or safe childcare options, such as with friends or family that you trust, so you can engage in self-care and kind of prevent burnout. The relationship between insecure attachments and one's relationship with food is complex and multifaceted aspect of psychological well-being. Insecure attachments can significantly influence an individual's approach to food and eating behaviors. For those with anxious attachments, food may become a source of comfort or a means to cope with emotional distress, leading to overeating or a reliance on specific comfort foods. On the other hand, individuals with avoidant attachments may develop a disconnected relationship with food, using it as a way to assert control or suppress emotions. Foster children are more likely to exhibit problematic eating and food-related behaviors, such as emotional, compulsive, or restrictive eating, overeating, hoarding, stealing, pica-like behaviors, and more. Additionally, these eating habits increase their likelihood of developing physical health issues, including obesity or eating disorders. We will kind of go more into depth on these behaviors and conditions in a following module. However, it's important to start creating a safe space around food and modeling healthy behaviors now. The ritual of sitting down together for meals can provide a sense of security and belonging and to help the child feel included. These moments of shared time together create a supportive environment where children can develop healthy eating habits, learn about proper nutrition, and establish positive social interactions through appropriate modeling. A secure and nurturing atmosphere around mealtime can reduce problematic eating and behavioral issues in foster children and can provide a sense of stability and opportunity for problem solving during this challenging time in their lives. Here are some tips for family mealtime. Set aside regular meals for the family. I know our lives get busy, but try and set a time for about 20 to 30 minutes where you can sit down with the entire family without distractions and without being in a rush. So turn off the TVs and set down the phone to make the meal more intentional. Next, limit distractions. When you're distracted by a TV or a phone, you're less likely to pay attention to what you're eating. This can lead to mindless eating where you consume food without truly savoring it or enjoying it. Mindful eating encourages you to be fully present and engaged with your meal, helping you make healthier food choices and enjoy your food more. Distractions can cause you to lose track of how much you're eating. You might overeat because you're not paying attention to your body's signals of fullness, which can affect interoception, which is the body's internal signals, and we will talk about that in the next module. But this can contribute to weight gain and stomach discomfort. Without distractions, you're more likely to eat in moderation and recognize when you're satisfied. This goes for children too. One important strategy to limit distraction at the mealtime is to check your child's position in their seat. Their hips, knees, and ankles should each about be at 90 degrees, with their feet resting on the floor or footrest of their high chair. You can place a stool or box on the ground for those children whose feet don't reach. Children who sit incorrectly are typically fidgety, shifting positions constantly, sitting on their legs, tumbling off their chair, and leaning on the table or other chairs, and that can make concentrating on their meal difficult. Another strategy is to get everybody involved. Have the children help out with preparing food. It can be as easy as washing the fruits or the vegetables or setting the table. For older kids, allow them to help pick out the recipe and help prepare it. It's important to keep mealtime conversations positive to establish a positive association with food and mealtime. So avoid talking about how much or what kind of food is being eaten to kind of prevent guilt, shame, or pressure around eating behaviors. Try to avoid saying, "You're eating so good," or "Look at your sibling, they're eating more than you." And avoid using food as punishment or bribes. For example, try not to say, "If you eat your vegetables, you can have ice cream for dessert," because using dessert as a bribe for eating dinner can create an unhealthy relationship with food for children. When dessert is consistently offered as a reward for eating their main meal, children may start associating dessert with being a more desirable food item. This can lead to them prioritizing sweets over nutritious foods and potentially overindulging in sugary treats, which can then contribute to poor eating habits and even health issues like obesity. Using dessert as a bribe does not teach the children the value of a balanced meal. Instead of helping them understand the importance of nutrition and making healthy food choices, it sends the message that the dessert is the ultimate goal and the main meal is simply a hurdle to overcome. And this approach can encourage negative behaviors such as food bargaining and manipulation, and children may learn to negotiate or withhold cooperation at dinner in anticipation of receiving a dessert. Instead, you can try providing a small piece of dessert with the meal if dessert is a tradition or routine in your family, or try to limit desserts to just the weekend as a special treat without making it contingent upon eating healthy foods or their meal. Be mindful of your own eating habits. Parents' attitudes and beliefs about food can shape their children's perspectives. For example, if parents express a negative view of certain foods or label them as bad or participate in all these fad diets, children may develop a similar mindset, potentially leading to food aversions or disordered eating behaviors. So parents who impose strict food rules or restrictions may unintentionally encourage unhealthy relationships with food in their children. For instance, when children gain more independence in their food choices, they may engage in overly restrictive diets, which can lead to cravings and overeating. Emotional eating, where individuals turn to food for comfort or to cope with emotions, can be learned from family dynamics. If parents use food as a way to soothe stress or celebrate, children may develop similar emotional associations to food. It's also important to be mindful of your foster child's social and cultural factors, which can significantly impact their food choices and preferences for what they want to eat. In addition, be aware to what was their previous mealtime like, what was their previous routine, what were they eating, kind of being mindful of all that. Children who have experienced trauma related to food may have unique needs and sensitivities. Here are some steps and strategies to consider when working with such a child. However, specific mealtime behaviors and strategies will be discussed in a following module. Notice patterns in the child's food preference and patterns to see if there might be a consistent trigger you could identify. The child may or may not be able to express their feelings and history surrounding mealtime. As much as possible, understand their triggers, fears, and preferences, and be mindful when creating routines and sitting down for family mealtimes to avoid creating more anxiety. And initially, serve familiar foods to what they are eating before entering your home. Offer foods that the child is familiar with and comfortable with, and then gradually introduce new foods over time. You can also start with just one family mealtime a week if it's a new concept, and then gradually increase. If you have concerns surrounding your child's history with trauma or attachment history, consult with a professional who can provide specific guidance tailored to your child's needs and circumstances. You can consult with either a licensed professional counselor, a licensed marriage and family therapist, trauma specialist, psychologist, or even an occupational therapist. Trauma can affect a child's ability to trust others and form healthy attachments. By consistently providing safety and security, caregivers can help a child rebuild trust and develop positive relationships. Trauma survivors need more than physical safety. They need emotional and psychological safety to heal. Feeling safe enables individuals to regulate their emotions and reactions more effectively. Felt safety reduces fear and anxiety. It allows individuals to lower their guard, relax, and focus on their well-being rather than being hyper alert or on edge. Addressing attachment styles in children in foster care or with histories of trauma is important for their overall well-being and long-term development. These individuals often come from backgrounds of disruptive or inconsistent caregiving, leading to insecure attachment patterns that can affect their relationships, emotional regulation, and social interactions. Addressing both attachment styles and food behaviors is essential for promoting both physical and emotional health. It can lead to healthier eating habits, improved relationships, reduced risks of mental health issues, and kind of give them an overall higher quality of life. Seeking professional help and support when needed is often crucial in promoting resilience and improved outcomes in children in foster care or with histories of trauma. Here are some resources that may be beneficial for you. It includes a tip sheet for co-regulation, information on resources in trauma, and the hand model of the brain that I mentioned earlier. Thanks for following along. If you have a few minutes, I really encourage you to either scan the QR code, or if that's not working, go to the main module page, and there should be a link there that will take you to a survey. Your input as parents is invaluable in guiding the development of my capstone project, and your feedback will play a significant role in enhancing this education program. So I'd really appreciate if you took a few minutes to complete this survey. Thanks again for watching. I hope you found some of the information useful. Module 2 will be uploaded to the website in about 1 to 2 weeks, and I will be discussing interoception.